Ozzy Osbourne. He's been the face of heavy metal for decades. Known for his wild antics, shocking performances, and as the leader of Black Sabbath, Ozzy's life is anything but ordinary. But behind the fame and the rock and roll craziness, there are some truly bizarre stories and facts about Ozzy that most people don't know. From his unexpected pets to his unlikely talents, there's more to this legend than meets the eye. Buckle up as we take a deeper dive into Ozzy's strange, unique, and sometimes downright weird life. 10. Ozzy. Once bit off the head of a bat, but not on purpose. You've heard the story, right? Ozzy Osbourne, the rock star with a reputation for outrageous behavior, biting the head off a bat during a live performance. It's one of the most famous and disturbing moments in rock history. But here's the thing. You might be surprised to learn that he didn't do it on purpose. The incident took place during a 1982 show in Des Moines, Iowa. Ozzy, who was known for his chaotic stage antics, thought he was holding a rubber bat thrown at him by a fan. In a moment of pure madness, he bit into it. That's when he realized it wasn't rubber. It was a real bat. After the show, Ozzy had to get a series of rabies shots, but the incident solidified his reputation as one of rock's most unpredictable and wild performers. 9. Ozzy has a pet, iguana. He calls the Lizard King. Forget about the typical rock star pets like dogs and cats. Ozzy Osbourne went all in with an iguana. He has a pet iguana that he proudly named the Lizard King, a nod to the legendary Jim Morrison of The Doors. Not just any pet. The Lizard King is part of Ozzy's unique collection of reptiles. You might expect a rock star to have a wild collection of animals, but an iguana named after a legendary rock icon? That's so Ozzy, right? And it's not just a passing interest. Ozzy has always had a deep fondness for exotic animals. There's no word on whether the iguana has had its own share of crazy experiences, but we can only imagine the bizarre antics Ozzy must get up to with his scaly companion. 8. Ozzy Osbourne was once fired from Black Sabbath, and then hired back. While most people think of Ozzy as the founder and iconic frontman of Black Sabbath, did you know that he was once fired from the band? Yep, that's right. He was kicked out in 1979. The reason? Ozzy's substance abuse problems were getting in the way of the band's progress. His wild partying, erratic behavior, and reliance on drugs had caused tensions in the group. But here's the kicker. After a couple of years, Ozzy was rehired. After launching his solo career and achieving moderate success, he was brought back into the fold in 1997 for the band's reunion tour. It's one of those rock and roll redemption stories where the star goes from being fired to coming back bigger than ever. 7. He loves to wear women's clothes, and he's proud of it. You might be used to seeing Ozzy in his classic black outfits, but did you know that he also has a bit of a fashion habit that defies traditional rock star norms? Ozzy has often been spotted wearing women's clothing, from skirts to dresses, and he's not ashamed of it. He's openly admitted that he loves wearing clothes that are, traditionally speaking, meant for women. In interviews, he's mentioned how freeing it feels to wear whatever makes him comfortable, regardless of what society might think. In fact, some say that Ozzy's love for fashion and breaking gender norms was part of his rebellious, larger-than-life persona. Who else but Ozzy could make wearing a skirt on stage look totally rock and roll? 6. Ozzy Osbourne almost became a dentist. Ozzy Osbourne, a dentist? It's hard to imagine the heavy metal icon trading in his guitars for dental tools, but it's true. In his youth, Ozzy was briefly interested in becoming a dentist. In fact, he was an apprentice to a local dentist in his hometown of Birmingham, England, before fully diving into music. His parents pushed him to find a stable career, and dentistry seemed like a good option. But of course, Ozzy's rebellious nature got the best of him, and he ended up leaving the dental field for the louder, wilder world of rock and roll. Can you imagine getting your teeth cleaned by Ozzy? The world may have been a very different place if he'd stuck with that career. 5. Ozzy Osbourne. Can't read music, but he's a musical genius. Here's a fun fact that might surprise you. Ozzy Osbourne can't read music. That's right. One of the most iconic rock stars in history doesn't know how to read or write musical notes. But this hasn't stopped him from making timeless music that continues to influence generations. Ozzy has said that he relies on his gut feeling when it comes to music, working with talented musicians who help bring his ideas to life. Despite not being able to read music, Ozzy has an incredible ear for melody and rhythm, and it's this instinctive approach that has made him a unique and highly successful musician. So, while he might not know how to read sheet music, Ozzy's talent for making great rock and roll speaks for itself. 4. Ozzy Osbourne's teeth were stolen by his own family. This one sounds like something straight out of a crazy rock star story, but it's true. In the early 2000s, Ozzy's teeth were actually stolen by one of his family members. His teeth, yes, his real teeth, had been kept in a glass container for years, a weird but sentimental relic from his past. Ozzy himself said that he was shocked to discover that one of his own relatives had stolen the teeth. They were eventually returned, but the bizarre theft adds another strange chapter to Ozzy's already crazy life. When you think of the weirdest things that rock stars have in their possession, teeth are probably the last thing that come to mind, unless you're talking about Ozzy Osbourne, of course. 3. Ozzy once got lost for 6 days in the forest. Not many people know that Ozzy Osbourne once got lost in the forest for 6 days. Yes, 6 days. In the late 1980s, he was staying at a remote cabin in the woods when he decided to go on a walk. In typical Ozzy fashion, he got completely turned around and ended up lost in the forest. What followed was a series of bizarre events. Ozzy was reportedly disoriented, hallucinating, and struggling to find his way back. Eventually, after days of wandering, he was rescued by a search team. It's hard to imagine the Prince of Darkness, usually so in control, being so helpless in the wilderness. But Ozzy's experience in the forest is just another example of the unpredictable, strange moments that have defined his life. 2. Ozzy is obsessed with watching the Beverly Hillbillies. Among the many things Ozzy Osbourne loves, one of his favorites is watching classic American TV shows, especially the Beverly Hillbillies. Ozzy has openly admitted that he's a huge fan of the show, and he often spends hours watching reruns of it. Despite being one of the biggest rock stars on the planet, Ozzy has always had a soft spot for the simple, down-to-earth humor of the Beverly Hillbillies. Maybe it's the nostalgia, or maybe it's the quirky characters, but Ozzy's love for the show is something fans find surprisingly charming. 1. Ozzy Osbourne can't stand the sound of his own voice. Here's one final weird fact. Ozzy Osbourne can't stand the sound of his own voice. As much as he's known for his distinctive vocal style, Ozzy has admitted that he hates hearing himself sing. In fact, he said that he avoids listening to his own music because it makes him cringe. It's fascinating to think that someone who's made a living out of performing and recording his voice would have such a negative reaction to it, but it just goes to show how much self-doubt and insecurity even the biggest stars can have. Ozzy might have one of the most iconic voices in rock history, but he's not exactly his own biggest fan. If you want to learn more about the weird and wonderful world of music legends, don't forget to check out the next video popping up on your screen.